welcome to Keep It Spiritual with myself, Chris Meredith. Now, first of all, give us a massive thumbs up and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Now, in this episode, I bring you the fabulous Lawson Patterson. Now, Lawson has been a fabulous supporter of Keep It Spiritual since the very beginning, which I absolutely love. And he is such a beautiful soul himself. He's a medium and a direct channel as well, and is popular the world over, connecting people with their past loved ones, working on their own spiritual development as well, and of course connecting them with their own spirit guides and everything else in between. Now, Lawson as well works with his beautiful spirit guide, which is called Harry, which you'll learn all about, and of course his magical journey. But one thing I love about Lawson is that he's so selfless, completely works with a lot of people in recovery as well, so helps people whether it's in the spiritual realm, in the physical realm. He's helping people 24/7, and what a guy to have on Keep It Spiritual. So I really hope this brings you some upliftment, some inspiration, and of course you're gonna love him. Here he is, the lovely Lawson Patterson. Well, Mr. Lawson Patterson, welcome to Keep It Spiritual. It's fabulous to finally have you on the show as well. I'm so excited to have you here. First of all, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing very well, thank you. And how about yourself?
Even better now I'm speaking to you. Even better.
Oh, listen to you.
I love it. I love it. Got to charm the birds, haven't we? We've got to do it, Lawson. Well, Lawson, you know, you're a spiritual medium, first of all, and a channel who is sought after all over the world. You know, you're so popular. You really, really are, Lawson. So when did you first connect with the spirit realm?
Well, consciously, it was in 2013. What happened was both my partner and I, Brian Benson, which you can read about him on brianbenson.com, extremely gifted person, but we had both been on very interesting journeys. At the time, I would not have recognized them as a spiritual journey per se. And then on January 7th in 2013, Brian, who has a fully open mind's eye, which we didn't realize at the time, he woke up that morning and I could tell he's kind of an introverted person. I could tell something was going on with him, but I was waiting for him to bring it to me to let me know what was up. And about 2 weeks into it, I finally had to set him down and say, "So what's going on? You know, you seem very distant." And he just started crying and telling me that for the last 2 weeks, he's been calling the psychiatric hotline because he woke up one morning, January 7th, 2013, and his entire world had changed. He had created a space in his mind that he used as a meditation space, and he would go into it every morning and spend time there. And he had gone into it that morning, and it was styled as an attic, kind of. He told me he had built it when he was young, and he told me it just made sense for it to be an attic because it seemed like it was at the top of his head. So he styled it as an old attic, and he would tell me that he would go in there and open the windows and sweep, and which, looking back, I think, boy, that really speaks as to what he was doing. He would go into his mind space in the morning and tidy up. And so he had gone in that morning on the 7th. He woke up, did his usual routine, stepped into what he refers to as his mind space, and everything had changed. It was no longer an attic. It was all smooth and like stainless steel looking. He told me it was like slick and silver. And he's crying as he's telling me this. And he says there's a large glass partition in the middle of the room. And on the other side of the room, and he's counting, he tells me there are 11 different people, and they're all screaming at me, trying to get my attention. And he goes, and I don't know, he just assumed that something had snapped in him mentally. He thought that, you know, when you hear voices of people that aren't there and see things that aren't there, that's a problem. So he started calling the mental helpline and the psychiatric hotline. And one of the people he spoke to, I just love the way the universe works, told him that they've been doing this work for a lot of years and that they don't believe he has any mental problems, that he needs to speak to a spiritualist. Well, at the time, Brian heard that as a priest. because he didn't even really know what a spiritualist was. And that upset him. He told the man that, I'm calling you because I think I'm losing my mind and you tell me to go speak with a priest. And he just kind of went off on the guy. So we went down. I was doing some work for some friends and traveling. We had gone down to a little town about 100 miles south of us called Grants Pass, Oregon. And while we were there, I told Brian, because I right away thought it was probably spirit. And you have to know, it was only 2 weeks before this. We were watching Teresa Caputo on the Long Island Medium, and we were having that talk you have, like, do you think that's real? Do you think she's the real deal? It's like, so, I mean, it was such a drastic change. 2 weeks later, this happens. And so we went down to this little town, and there was a man, I won't say his name, but he's pretty renowned medium and has a lot of books out. And he lives down in Palm Springs, California. Well, while I was at work, Brian went over to one of these, he went to find a metaphysical store. I told him, go find a crystal shop or something, find somebody to talk to. So he did. And when he went in, he's, like I say, he's kind of an introvert, and he just kind of went around. He didn't want to talk to the guy. So he just kind of looked at some books and then he left. And so the next day when he walked into the shop, the owner, who is an empath and happens to be friends with the medium down in California, sees Brian walk in the shop and he says, come here, come here, come here, come here. And Brian's like, me? And he's like, come here. So he comes over and he says, yesterday I saw you in my store. And he goes, right after you left, I received a call from this medium down in Palm Springs, who's a friend of ours, who told me that he was interrupted by his spirit guides while working with a client, which is something they don't typically do. And they were telling him, you need to call the store in Grants Pass right now, because there's a powerful psychic that's come into his gift and he is desperate for help. And you need to call now. He's in the store right now. And this guy in Palm Springs was telling his guides, I can't, I'm with a client, and they're telling him, you need to excuse yourself and go call now. So he wasn't able to call. So this guy says to Brian, I know it's you. I knew the minute he said that, I knew it was you. So he asked if he could call this guy down in Palm Springs, put Brian on the phone with him. And this man proceeded to tell Brian everything that had been going on for the last 2 weeks. The morning he woke up and everything changed, just everything. It was the most profound validation that I ever experienced, to this date have ever experienced. It was almost immediately after that. During that time, Brian made contact with his guide that he refers to as Wes. Probably within 2 months, I had my own awakening experience where I was approached by a guide who I refer to as Harry. I work with Harry, Brian works with Wes. One thing led to another, and within 2 years, I spent the first 2 years working with Harry as a healer. They were training me to move energy, focus energy, and manipulate energy to use as a healer, and tells me that's where my true gifts lie. One thing led to another. People started wanting to book with me in other capacities. So now I work as a healer, a channel, a medium, a counselor. I've found that when I do sessions with people, it is, and I think this comes from my healer base, people always want to, I did a session yesterday, for example, where somebody is hoping to speak to their grandfather, someone they loved and were very close to. Grandfather that you spoke to every day usually will tell me there's nothing left unsaid. They know I love them. I know they love me. There is nothing left unsaid. Tell them I love them. The person who wants to step forward for me is typically Uncle Icky, the guy who inappropriately touched you when you were young, or your father who treated you like crap your whole life because of his own issues. These are the people that step forward. And they step forward because that's where the healing lies. That's where the hurt lies within people. And oftentimes my clients don't want to face that. Um, I will tell them, so you have an Uncle Bill that's stepping forward, and they're like, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want nothing to do with that asshole. That's the way they will approach me. And so I will just ease into letting them know what their uncle is saying and how he's feeling about things now, and that he wants to do his best to try and heal that spot within them that they helped to damage, so that they can move forward.
I mean, Lawson, I mean, that's the most important thing there, isn't it? Because I know you mentioned, your healing work as well. And, a lot of people think, oh, healing, it's all love and light and nice. And it's not necessarily, it's not really, is it? Because, to heal, you've got to go through hardship, and hardship isn't easy to go through, is it?
Yes, it's very difficult to face those things. And there are things that most people, when I'm working with them, have very much buried. They haven't looked at it in years. They oftentimes will tell me that they feel that they're okay with it because they can talk to me about it. They're not crying, and they're like, no, I'm okay with it. But really, more times than not, what's happened is, we're very skilled as human beings at boxing up those things that make us uncomfortable and storing them away, and thinking that they're no longer affecting us. But the truth of the matter is, whenever we've been cut deeply, we bleed on everyone around us, and it will affect every relationship in your life, especially those that are bonds with parents. I have a lot of parents that will come forward with apologies to their children, because they were, they wish they had done things a little differently. They reached their higher perspective on the other side, and they see things differently. They understand the errors of their way. They also understand the value in the journey they led, but they typically focus on the errors of their way, is how they'll put it, because again, they're wanting to heal within the person that's still here. So to try and justify it as, oh no, there's a lot of value in what I did, that's not going to help the person heal. They need to own it, and as a bad that they did. And that's typically the work that I do. I do a lot of that. And just recently, as I'm sure you noticed on Twitter, I have started doing a lot of groups. We're all adjusting because of this pandemic. And so there was a big part of my work and my income was doing really large groups. I'm not able to do that any longer with things the way they are. And so I've started doing it on Zoom. And it's working out wonderfully. I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm hoping that audience continues to build. I'm doing one this Saturday on spirit guides. And so it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful group. I hope everybody joins.
I hope they do. Well, that was one of my questions as well. So let's talk spirit guides. So now you brought it up, Lawson. I mean, let us know all about it. I mean, for anyone, that's kind of wanting to go to one of your Zoom sessions. I mean, you've talked about many different spiritual topics, but obviously, the one coming is all about spirit guides. So what can people expect from that?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my experience. There is not a person that I speak with, either professionally or actually even just casually, that there isn't a guide that makes an appearance. I am not somebody who approaches people when spirit or guides come to me, which they do all the time. It happens a lot even on social media. I will be reading somebody's bio, and their parent or their child on the other side will want me to talk to them. My response to both guides and spirit is always the same. Your job is not to convince me to approach your loved one. Your job is to convince them to schedule with me, because I'm not a meddler. I'm not here to tell you, all this great stuff I know and try and impress you. The door opens when somebody asks. So if you ask to receive the information, I know that you're open to receive it, and then I will give it. And so that's what I tell spirit and what I tell guides. Everyone I set with, there is a guide that approaches me to start telling me a little bit about their history, who they are, where they're headed. In this particular gathering that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to discuss the different types of guides that I've ran across, because with each belief structure and each belief system that a person has, I remember the first time that I was approached by a guide that was a three-headed beast, and it shocked me. I
Mm.
had no idea what this whole thing was. And my guide, Harry, had to let me know that's actually his guide. And then as I got speaking to the man, and he started describing his belief structure to me, and that it was really, even for me, it was kind of out there. I mean, and I mean that in the most respectful way. I mean, he's a wonderful guy, and I still speak with him today. But at first, when I spoke with him, I thought maybe he was mistaken about what he was experiencing. So when this entity approached me, it shocked me that was the case. But it's because of the way his beliefs are structured. Everything in our reality is structured based on our belief system. And so I've experienced all different types of guides, angelic guides, beast-like guides. They all have the same universal information available to them. Everybody has one. One of the things I've also noticed that I want to talk with people about in this seminar thing is that everybody's wanting to speak to their guides. You know, your guide has been with you since the moment you arrived. They feel very much like a part of you. So it is much easier when a spirit enters the room to identify them as someone different coming in. The guide feels like part of your vibration because they have always been standing beside you. So to make that delineation between that which is my guide and that which is me can be a little more tricky than between that which is me and that which is spirit. And so that's part of what I want to discuss, is the different ways that we can start to make that communication. You know, I think spirit communication is really on a resurgence. People are starting to do it more and more and more. And I think it is so important because of where our world sits today. We're finding it very difficult, very, very difficult to find trustworthy sources. Most people don't feel they can trust our politicians. We don't feel we can necessarily even trust the doctors, certainly not the press. So we need sources that we know really have our best interest in mind. And you just can't go wrong with a guide or with loved ones in spirit. You know, they have such great insight and they truly love us and care about us. And so that's very important, I think. And it's also, I think, a person needs to realize the difference between a guide and a physical entity, which I guess is a whole nother subject, because, you know, there's also ETs. I mean, there are a lot of entities out there that you can speak with. Something I have learned with time, though, is, and something that was actually told to be my guide early on, is to carry a certain caution whenever you're speaking with a physical entity, because they always have a self-serving underlying desire. Whereas your guides and your loved ones in spirit, they don't. They just want to help you. They just want to do what they can do for you. And I think also one of the things about guides is people seem to think they're like magic 8 balls or something, that you just ask them questions and they give you answers. And that's just not the case. Harry tells me all the time, he says, I'm a guide. I'm not an answerer. You know, I don't answer your questions. You ask the questions and I will guide you to finding the answers. That's what we do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's, you know, and that's
That's
part of the journey. I think it's going to be wonderful. I'm going to talk about all the different types of guides, and I'll also be delivering messages to the participants from their guides and making some introductions.
That's cool. That's cool. I like it. I like it. And of course, you know, that's coming up on the 15th of August. So, I mean, talking about guides, Lawson. So, you know, your guide, Harry, you've mentioned him a little bit. So what's your connection like with Harry?
It's, well, I'm not sure exactly how you want me to describe it. It's constant. It's 24/7. It never leaves. It never leaves. He is in my ear all day long about everything. He literally, I can tell you, Chris, he's become my best friend. I mean, he is by far my best friend. He will chime in on everything from the sitcom I'm watching on TV. I mean, he'll make little jokes, everything. I'll taste something that I'm like, ooh, that tastes terrible. This happened just the other day. And I can just hear him hysterically laughing. And he'll start telling me, try another bite, try another bite. So he's just always messing with me. So he's a constant figure in my life. It's just like he's literally always standing right beside me. So that connection is really strong. And he's kind of my, he's my trusted person there. When I'm working with other people, he keeps me safe when I work with people. He acts as a sentinel as I am working with people to keep away any negative energy, that type of thing. So again, my connection, I guess, with him would be he's my best friend. And I would like to see that be the case for more people, because it's just such an incredibly powerful bond. I mean, it has completely changed our lives. In 2013, Brian and I were flipping houses. We were doing real estate. Prior to that, Brian had been an executive with Macy's and Federated, which is the world's largest retailer, for probably 17 years. He was an upper executive with them. I was a sales professional and worked with Olin Mills Portrait Studios. I had a giant region here in the state of Oregon, and I ran 17 studios for them. So we were working totally different jobs when this hit. In 2013, when this happened, we both decided to quit doing everything else. We sold the rental properties we had. We paid off our home. We positioned ourselves so that we would be all right financially for a while. At the time, I kind of foolishly thought that, within a year or two, we'll be able to start making some income from this somehow. But we knew that we needed to have 100% focus, and that's why we quit doing other things. It was actually probably more like 5 years before the financial struggle kind of started to lighten up. There are a lot of lessons to be learned, about finances and those types of things, and the work that we were doing. So anyway, it's been, I had somebody ask me the other day, they wanted me to do something that I found really unethical. And I had to tell them that I really, truly believe that my gifts and my abilities totally hinge on my ethics and my morals. I think that the moment I start to allow those to slip, I am going to start to lose that connection I have. Because also I've learned that by maintaining really strong ethics and morals, those in non-physical are much more inclined to help you. Spirit is much more inclined to help you. The guides are more inclined to help you because they know your heart is true and that you're not wanting to hustle somebody or, whatever the case might be. Brian and I were a little taken aback because for 2.5 years, the guides, they asked us outright not to read other people's books, not to watch videos. They didn't want us looking for teachers in the physical world. They wanted to teach us. And they told us that everyone down here is such limiting belief structures. And so to read or study about somebody else's experience with their limiting belief structure is not going to be a benefit for you. So they asked us to not do that, and they just taught us personally for the first 2.5 years. The first time we stepped out and went out into the spiritual community, we were so taken aback by the egos and the way that we were kind of treated by people. We didn't realize that a lot of what we had experienced was kind of out there, even in the spiritual world. So we just very openly started talking about it, and I would immediately see people rolling their eyes and, like we were like lying or something. And it shocked me, and it really hurt both of us. And we just kind of came back home, and we spent probably another year not reaching out at all to anybody in the spiritual community and just deciding between ourselves and our guides how we would handle the situation.
I mean, I love that.
And this is where we've landed.
I love it, Lawson. I mean, I love that because for me, I mean, obviously doing Keep It Spiritual, but apart from Keep It Spiritual, I've always been, the spiritual side of me has always been there since I was like 14, 15. And, I've not developed it nowhere near, as much as you. But, that ego, it should never be there. You're working with light. It isn't necessarily about you, about me. It's about healing and helping people. regardless, it's not about, Lawson Patterson. It's not about Chris Meredith. It's about people getting the right information, but, you've kind of downloaded the right way. You've not taken someone else's words and then kind of make it fit around you, because that's their experience.
Right.
You've got your own unique way into this, which is so much more important. I truly believe that. I really do.
I think it's been wonderful. And, and it puts me in a position, I get shocked. People are shocked sometimes in the way that I promote other people that do what I do, which I promote lots of other people that do the type of work that I do. I base it solely, and this is the reason I started promoting your stuff, actually,
You did.
Chris.
Thank you for
I base
that.
it. I base it solely on what I pick up from that person vibrationally, and what my guide and their guide are telling me about them. So immediately upon seeing you, I knew immediately that I liked your vibrational core, where you were coming from. And that sparked a conversation between me and your guide. Your guide then started filling me in a little bit about your history, where they were taking you and what the kind of the plans were for that. And so immediately I knew that this is somebody part of the team, somebody I need to promote. And that's what I do. I do that with Jody Levon. I do it with the Psychic Twins. I do it with a lot of people. And it's because they are pure-hearted people. They are just truly pure-hearted people. They're not trying to hustle anyone. They're not trying to fluff up their damaged ego, which is unfortunately, I think, what we're seeing in the spiritual community. People are feeling they have lost their power. They've just lost all their personal power. And so when they find out that they have a little something going on spiritually, they just latch on to that as a means of, see, I am important. There is something special about me. And that's kind of sad, because they should feel that way anyway. They're all very special and so important. I think that's what people don't get, that each person on this planet is an integral part of all that is. And without one of them, it all collapses. It's so important, and it's so important to understand our worth. We've all been raised up in this society where it's all about money and looks, and everything is so superficial. We've kind of forgotten a lot of what is important. I was just watching some looting going on here, and all I could think as I was watching the looting on TV, I think it was in Chicago, I just thought, my goodness, it's like, is everyone a thief? I mean, that was my thought. It was like, is everyone given the opportunity a thief? Because I just can't imagine. And don't get me wrong, Chris, I have not always been this person. I am a very different person than I was 20 years ago. It's a growth process. There was a time in my life when I was also a very wounded person. I didn't understand my value, my worth. There was a time when I got misled into drug use when I was younger that took me down a dark road. Things that I carried a lot of guilt for, and now that I'm so thankful for. They've all helped to create the person I am, and I really love myself today. And they help me to do the work I do. Because I have so many people that come to me that they're wounded inside at their own actions. They've done things in their past. The guilt they carry, the hurt they carry is phenomenal, and it destroys their lives. And so I really enjoy working with people to let them realize that it's all part of the game. It's all part of the system. It is part of the system, but it is. You help people, in recovery as well, don't you, Lawson? You help people, that have had, struggles, and that's really important to you, isn't it? Very important. And I wouldn't be able to do that work if it hadn't been for having gone down that road. I think that they understand that I understand where they've been from, because I can tell some pretty horrific stories to those people of the places I've been in my life and the things that I've done. So that really shocks them, and they're like, whoa, they can't believe that, hearing that from me. It's like, and I tell them, and that just goes to show, I was there, and this is me today, and you can do that too. And it really all starts, though, with, you have to let go of that guilt. You know, everybody is reaching for relief in this world, Chris.
Mm.
Everybody is reaching for food or alcohol or sex or drugs or shopping, or always have to be with people, can't be alone, or, you know, there's always something. Everyone is doing it. There's no reason to feel shame for that. There's no reason to feel shame for being a human being who's reaching out. We're all doing it. And so it really breaks my heart a lot when I see these people. That I was working with a woman the other day that, you know, it's 23 years as a heroin addict. And I'm not telling this story to toot my own horn, but it is really one of my all-time favorite stories. It was at a small group reading a while back, and Spirit came through. I mean, it was so crazy. Every name, every story, everything. And this woman is just bawling and bawling. And it was all about forgiveness and love. And 4 months later, I'd gone to somebody's house that was a mutual friend, and she happened to show up, and I literally did not recognize her. She told me that the very next day, she checked herself into treatment. She hasn't done heroin since the day I spoke to her. She was looking wonderful. She was out trying to get a new job. It changed her life. And that moment, these are the little moments where my guide will peek in, and he'll tap me on the shoulder and smile at me and say, that's why we do what we do. And it's sorry, it's kind of choking me up. I'm starting to cry a little bit.
Oh no, but that's so good though. But I mean, that is really what it's all about, isn't it? It is. And you know, that's more than money, than clothes, than anything, you know.
Oh my goodness.
You know, you've done something that's, you know, helped change someone's life for the better.
It's been wonderful. I love it. And honestly, I never would have thought that this is where I would land. To think back, I remember watching that Teresa Caputo show and thinking, oh my goodness, I just can't even believe it. I mean, it's such an amazing universe, the way it works. And, you know, you've got so much ahead of you, Chris. You are just barely getting started. You've got so much ahead of you, and so many wonderful experiences and things, such incredible guides around you, that you're going to have a wonderful experience with that connection.
I hope so.
Which, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they tell me that you chat with them all the time.
I do. That
you simply, yeah. And they tell me that oftentimes you think that you'll laugh at yourself, like you're talking to yourself. Your guide tells me that they really go out of their way to use verbiage that is not normal for you. So they choose words that aren't words that are normally in your vocabulary. And he's telling me that he does that because he wants you to recognize that, wait a minute, I don't even use that word. I mean, that sounds strange in my own head. And so he does that because he's trying to delineate between you and he. So you've got a wonderful journey ahead of you. I'm really going to enjoy watching you over these next few years. There's a lot coming your way. There's a lot coming your way.
I really, really do.
No problem.
I do. Well, you know, Lawson, for anyone, you know, that's listening and watching this, of course, you know, you offer private readings yourself, don't you, through your website?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, I do 45-minute and 90-minute sessions. What's that?
It's important for people to know because they've watched you. And of course, you know, they need to get hold of you.
And my website is Meditate to Connect. So it's meditate, the number 2, and connect. And that actually stemmed from early on, people asking us, so how do I meet my guide? How do I this? How do I that? We really recommend that meditation is where it all starts. We have all got such incredibly busy minds, one thought to another thought to another thought, and it just keeps going. It's difficult to hear those who are speaking to us when we've got so much chatter constantly going on in our heads. So to take a few minutes to quiet that, and actually Brian is going to be doing a group soon on meditation, and to try and clarify for people. You know, everyone seems to think that you got to sit down in a lotus position and Om and, you know, stuff like that. And really, we've been taught from our guides that meditation is anything that brings your attention to one specific spot to the exclusion of everything else. And so they oftentimes recommend things like the adult coloring books that are real popular. You're so focused on coloring this tiny little area that you're not thinking about anything else at that time. And that they consider a meditative state, because it is during those times when you are so focused and all the extra chatter isn't going on that the download becomes more clear. And so meditation is really, really important with people. And so that's something Brian is going to be promoting in this next thing. And that is where my website gets its name, meditate2connect.com.
I love it. Well, don't worry, Lawson. I'll put everything on, the video so people can connect with you as well. Well, I've got to say thank you so much for your time, Lawson. It's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you. Finally, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to come to it. But of course, thank you so much, Lawson. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure talking with you, Chris. And we'll see you in the Twitterverse.
We will. All right, darling. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
There we are, that was the fabulous Lawson Patterson right there. If you want to know anything more about Lawson, or you want to book him for a reading or any work, I'll put everything in the description below so you can check him out. Well, I've got to say a massive thank you for watching Keep It Spiritual, and remember, make sure you subscribe and give us a massive like, and on Friday as well, it will be my spiritual love, so make sure you check out for that. Until next time, I've been Chris Meredith, and remember, keep it spiritual. I'll see you later.